Hi everybody, it's Lauren Brown, also known as Raggedy Royal on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and now YouTube. And today we're going to be talking all about setting powder. What is setting powder? Why do you use it? What's my favorite setting powder? Different colors of setting powder. Y'all did not disappoint with asking me the questions on Instagram to help me script out this video and really figure out what y'all wanted to know about it. Also, thank you so much. At this point, we are at 39,954 YouTube subscribers, which means by the time I post this in the morning, we'll probably be at 40,000. Thank you all so much in advance. And I can't wait to get to 50,000 and then 50 million and then 50 gazillion. Thank you all so much. All right, so first let's talk about when in my routine I use setting powder. First, let me say this. I have normal to dry skin. So if you have oily skin, then your setting powder needs may look a little bit different than mine. So I just want to put that out there because I know some oily creators like Jackie Aina use their setting powder before they do their entire face and then in different steps. I'm gonna just tell you what I do for my normal to dry skin and what has worked for me. So first of all, I come on here looking crazy. I know, I'm so brave. I'm doing it again. If you watch my Blush 101 video, this should be deja vu. I really want to walk y'all through exactly when I add this in my step so that you can see it in real time. So I have already done all my wet and cream products. So I've done my foundation, my concealer, my blush, my contour, anything wet on the face, my primer. I've already done that, and then I'm going to add my setting powder right afterwards, right? So I don't add cream products on top of powder or liquid products on top of powder, and because that's a weird texture. I don't want to play with that. That's creating a paste. I don't want to do that, right? So I'm going to add all my wet stuff and then put the powder on top, and then I'll add my powder blush on top, but that's powder, so that's fine. Why would you use setting powder? Use setting powder to mattify the face. So that is anything that is shiny, you mattify it. It also can help fill in a little bit of texture, but like I tell y'all all the time about texture on your face, it's on your face. It's texture, like smile lines, under eye creasing. It's only so much that makeup can do, and it's not that big a deal if it doesn't cover it up, because it's not going to cover it up because it's literally creases and lines in your face. It's in your face. Not much that a powder can do to like fully cover that for forever. That's not how textures and fine lines work, right? But setting powder can help with that. It can help with that, but I want to just set our expectations to a good place because I know there's some warped ideas around what makeup can do for, because people always like, how do I get rid of my smile lines? You don't get rid of them. You know what I mean? You can cover them up a little bit, but fine lines of your face are going to be fine lines of your face. So I wanted to talk about why you would even use setting powder. Let's talk about what we're going to apply setting powder with. Here are my favorite brushes. My favorite brush for setting powder underneath the eyes and throughout the entire face is the Anastasia Beverly Hills A22, because every time I recommend a brush, I just discontinue it, and that just keeps happening. I'm going to show you one of my other favorites. This is the Real Techniques Contour Brush. You've probably seen me use this brush as a concealer brush, and your eyes do not deceive you. I have multiple of them, but I love this brush also because it is small enough to get into the crevice of my under eye, but it's big enough to, save me time and actually take up some space. Your under eye is a pretty big space, so you don't want to use something so small like this. That's not really my preference, to use something kind of tiny because I really want to mattify all of that. However, using a brush this big can kind of get all over the place. So I really like the size of this contour brush here from Real Techniques. The last brush I will show you is this Real Techniques Square Foundation brush, and I don't use this for foundation at all. I literally only use this brush to put the setting powder on my nose contour. And this is probably the brush that I get asked the most questions about in my Instagram reels and my TikTok videos. Everybody wants to know what this square brush is. The size, the shape is perfect for the nose. That's literally the only place I use it, and it earns its keep and its value just by that one space. Because I always want to make these videos as informative as possible, I asked on my Instagram story what questions I have about setting powder and setting the face. One of the questions was how to use a powder puff. You don't. I don't know if I've ever used a powder puff unironically in my makeup. Maybe once. They're flimsy. I feel like they're unsanitary. I mean, brushes are kind of unsanitary too, but never been my thing. I really like the brush. I literally looked through all my setting powders to see if I even had I don't have a puff, okay? So I'm just gonna say you don't. So now let's get into the types of setting powder. I just wanna give another 5 points to myself for the bravery of talking about all this while my under eyes are creasing, but it's okay, because I'm gonna show you the power of setting powder in action. This is gonna get really real. Anyways, so let me tell you about the types of setting powder. I got a lot of good questions, and one of them was loose versus setting versus blurring. And I feel like blurring is just an effect that they add to the name of things, but I don't think blurring powder is like its own genre. I think that's just like a marketable term. It's a feature, but not its own. I looked through all my powders. I'm like, are any of you guys blurring powders? And they don't say blurring powders. They say they're setting powders, and you know, it may give a blurring effect. Let's talk about loose versus pressed. So when you think back to your grandma saying, I'm gonna go powder my nose, they were using pressed powders, right? They weren't using the loose setting powders that are more prevalent today. So these are 2 pressed powders, and these are the Maybelline Superstay Full Coverage Powder Foundations. And I have them in 2 different shades. This one is natural beige. So what is a powder foundation? What is this pressed powder mess? So what are the pros and cons? They're pressed, so they're not loose. They're less messy. This is kind of the same consistency as a bronzer, not so much like a powder blush or a eyeshadow, because it's way more creamy and way thicker. The pros, it's high coverage. The cons, it's high coverage. It really depends on what you're going for. I will say that I feel like powder foundations come in many more skin tones than translucent powders, and that's probably because they are so opaque. And they do have a color payoff, whereas the color payoff of loose powders, it really just doesn't compare to a powder foundation. Very strong. However, somebody asked, how will I do setting powder if I don't want to have a brightening effect in my under eye? A powder foundation or a pressed setting powder may be a really good idea for you, because they usually come in your skin tone color. You don't have to get anything that's translucent or, you know, any lighter than your skin tone. This right here might be a great option for you. They're not all skin tone color though. So this is the Fenty Beauty Invisimatte blotting powder, and this is pressed powder. It's white but really translucent. I'm gonna be honest, this don't really have no color payoff, like at all. It doesn't make no noise. But this is another example of brands making one that doesn't have color. I don't know if I can vouch for this one though, because it don't really give. So now let's talk about loose setting powder. So now this is my realm, right? So first let's talk about, what is a loose setting powder? This is an example of loose setting powder. I picked this one because it's humongous. This is the Lorac Pro Loose Setting Powder in vanilla. You see, it comes out into the top. It has a sifter. What is a sifter? A sifter is that thing in your powders that has little holes in it so that all of it doesn't explode out at one time. It has a sifter. This is a loose setting powder. It's called loose setting powder because it is loose. It's literally just powder up in there. If it wasn't for the sifter, it'd be everywhere. All right. Loose setting powder does not have the same payoff as a pressed setting powder. It's not as opaque. It's not as powerful. That could be a pro and a con. Pro, it's not as opaque and powerful. Con, it's not as opaque and powerful. Really depends on what you're going for, like I said before. Let's talk about the shades of setting powder. So somebody asked me to try on all the different shades of setting powder. I am not going to do that. As I explain each shade, you're going to understand why I didn't do that, because I feel like that'd be more hurtful than it is helpful. So setting powder comes in many different shades. My personal favorite setting powder is the Laura Mercier Translucent Loose Setting Powder in Translucent. As you can see, I barely got in here and left in here. I know y'all thinking, every time you make a video, you almost out of stuff. And that's because I'm saving up all my PR to make a PR unboxing video for y'all. Sacrifices. Anyways, as you can see, it is an oat shade, so it's not totally white. This is my favorite shade of translucent powder. The shades that you use really does depend on your skin tone and your undertone. I'll explain. First of all, there is banana powder. I feel like after translucent powder, banana powder is the most popular, especially if you watch Instagram reels and things like that. You've probably seen banana powder. And banana powder, this is a banana powder. As you can see, it has a yellow tone to it. Sometimes they are darker, sometimes they are lighter, just depending on the skin tone. But this is a banana powder. This is the Maybelline Banana Translucent Setting Powder. And why would you use a banana powder if you have a yellow undertone? That's why you use a banana powder. That's why I'm not putting on a banana powder today, because I don't really have a yellow undertone like that. And it can look a little clownish if you don't get the undertones right. But if you do get the undertones right, you do have a yellow undertone, banana powder is a great thing to look into. And that's usually when you see people on Instagram using on their clients, they have yellow, golden undertones. I do not. This is another colored powder. So this is the Laura Mercier Translucent Loose Setting Powder in Rose. And this is a light pink. Okay, so if you have rosy pink undertones, this would be a great option for you. I have used this a few times when I have really pink blushes. I will say I feel like it's not as harsh as banana powder. Like using a light pink blush and using banana powder, I feel like banana powder is a little bit more noticeable that your undertone is off. But these are some colored powders. This one is in shade Brulee. As you can see, this one is darker. The Laura Mercier powder also comes in translucent honey, which is exactly my favorite powder, but just in a honeyed shade. I like my under eye to be a little bit brighter, so this is a little bit too dark for me. But I'm just showing you all the different colors that loose setting powder can come in. Because sometimes people are just like, I don't want to put white underneath my eye. And that makes sense. But let me let you know, you have options. I don't have any deep shade setting powders in my collection anymore because I gave them all to my best friend. There was going to be no use for them here with me, so I gave them to her so she can use them. But I just want to let you know that some of these powders do come in deep. I know, for example, the One Size powder comes in translucent and comes in deep. The Laura Mercier powder also comes in a deeper shade. So yes, a lot of powders come in a light, medium, deep, or at least a light and deep shade. Some loose setting powders do come in stark white, so not even that translucent shade, literally stark white. This is the Makeup Forever Ultra Micro Finishing Loose Powder. So there you go. So the person who asks, what shade of powder should be used if you want to set with no brightening effect? Something that's closer to your skin tone. So any of the things that I showed today, or any things that you see in the store and you see these products but in different shades and you're like, okay, this is closer to my skin tone, that's what you want to do. You don't want to go for the white powder. If you want a brightening effect, I really love the Laura Mercier Secret Brightening Powder, and this is in literally a shade stark white. It looks like it would be like a flashback problem. It hasn't been a flashback problem for me, but you can either go a lighter or darker in your setting powder color, depending on what you go for, depending on what you want. Flashback. So that's a big concern for people. How do I stay away from flashback? I feel like flashback is an effect of one of two causes. One, you're applying too much powder. You just got too much powder on your face. The camera is fighting for its life. The flash is fighting for its life. The powder is putting both its dukes up. You got too much powder on your face. And I'll show you how much powder I apply and how I apply it in a second. Or you're just using the wrong powder. So I know everybody loved the air spun powder. Literally baby powder in a container. You're gonna get flashback. So it's either the quantity, how much powder you're using, or the quality, which powder you're using. So, like I said, my favorite one is the Laura Mercier. I can vouch for this one. I also love the Beauty Bakery flower setting powder. Drugstore option. They sell this in Target. Those are two of my favorites that I can vouch for at this very moment. However, do not get the Laura Mercier Translucent Loose Setting Powder Ultra Blur. I know we were just talking about like the blur. This is too strong. I don't like this one. But I do like the original. So those are some quality concerns. We're going to get to quantity concerns right now. So, great question. To bake or not to bake? Kim Kardashian and her makeup artist Mario made baking a very aesthetic, very popular, trendy thing to do. Everybody thought that they needed to bake. Everybody does not need to bake, okay? Every step in makeup that you see somebody else do does not mean that you need to do that step, because makeup can be so personalized, especially when it comes to things like skin. Any base product, any face product can be so personalized. If you have super dry skin and I have super oily skin, what we use, we shouldn't just be copying each other's tips, because we have different needs, right? So, baking is great if you have oily skin. It's fantastic. Baking, I'm about to show you what baking is. I'll put a picture over here. This is what baking is. Baking is basically when you add a lot of setting powder and you let it bake. You let it sit there for a while and then you wipe it away later. The most I bake is when I bake my nose contour, when it's a mess and I gotta clean it up. That's the most that I ever add setting powder and just let it sit. Why? Because I have normally dry skin. So I really don't need all of that mattifying, because it's not that shiny. I'm not getting that oily. I'm not having that problem. If you are getting that problem, you are that oily, you are that shiny, you're going to be a great candidate for baking. However, it's not one size fits all. That's the thing with baking. So a lot of these questions are like, how do I get it? How do I stop it from looking cakey? You're probably using too much and you're leaving it on for too long. You probably don't need to bake. You probably don't need to bake. Sometimes the powder can make the texture look worse. Another question related to this: any tips on setting with textured skin? Sometimes the powder can make the texture look worse. You don't want to add too much powder, because like I said before, powder is not going to take away texture that's already there. It's not cement. You know what I mean? It's not just going to lay over it and make a fresh coat. That's not how it works. So you don't want to put a whole bunch of powder on top of texture, because you know what that's going to do? It's going to bring it out. You guys going to really be able to see it. You may want to try something that's a little bit dewy. You might want to try to dewy your face, right? So you may want to use less setting powder, because setting powder is only really going to bring out. It's going to mattify it. Mattifying it pretty much looks like drying it down. You don't want that on top of texture. You really, really don't. It's only going to make it worse. So you're going to use less. You are not a good candidate for baking. Adding all of that powder on top of texture, that's going to give you a cakey result. It's going to make you look mummified. It's going to make you look dry. It's going to be a mess. You're not going to bake. I'm going to show you how I apply my powder. So I'm going to be taking the Laura Mercier Translucent Loose Setting Powder. And today I'm going to be using the Anastasia A22 brush. I always put it in the top because, like I said, loose setting powder can get everywhere. My laptop literally looks like this every time I do a video. Like, there's setting powder. There's setting powder everywhere. All the time. All the time. And I like to just put it in the top to make it easy. And what I'm going to do is, I'm going to apply it right... Okay, hold on. You should look at powder as the lock for your face. So whatever you have going on, you're going to lock that in place. So before I even go in with the powder, since I've been talking for so long and I have these under eye creases, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to just flatten that out with a concealer brush. You don't want to just put the powder on top of the creases. I mean, the natural ones, yes, but what I just had, no. Because it's going to lock it in exactly as it is. You don't want to do that. So now that I've flattened that out, I'm going to take the powder on the brush. I'm going to go right underneath the eye. And honestly, that was even a lot for me. I also do the forehead and over the brows. Somebody also asked, how do I keep my eyebrows from not being oily? Here's what I recommend. I would recommend putting the powder on first, then doing the brow pomade or the brow fill-in, however you fill in your brows, then setting it with powder. Try that. I feel like I've seen Kaya.Naomi try that. Or somebody on Instagram try that. Try that. And I'm going to just powder the face. I also go right here on the smile lines. Once again, I have to drive this point home. The powder is not gonna make my smile lines disappear, because there are lines in my face. I'm happy. Smile lines, I smile. Sue me, you know what I mean? It's not that big a deal. How do I get my smile lines to go away? You don't. And I put it on the chin as well. I don't mess with over here, and I don't mess too much with my cream contour, because I don't like it to be too one-dimensional, too flat, too matte. What I do, go right underneath the eye, around the mouth, and on the forehead. That's where I apply my powder. As you can see, I apply it and I wipe it away. It's no baking. The only thing I'm going to bake, the only thing I'm going to even remotely bake is my nose really quickly, and I'm going to show you how I use this square brush to do that. But I don't leave it there to sit. I just mattify it, and that's it. Oh, if you're saying, wow, my makeup is so cakey, I don't know what the problem is. I'm using, powders I see everybody else using, but it just looks so cakey on me. You're using too much. You're using too much. Use less. And this stuff is expensive. Use less. So I'm going to take that square foundation brush from Real Techniques, and I'm going to just, with a little bit of powder on it, go along my nose contour. And I just be doing this because sometimes my nose contour be looking a little janky. I'm being honest. This is like my give it to God moment. When it's too much, when I can't figure it out with just contour and nose contour, like the contour shade, this is my last hope. This is like the praying grandmother of the steps of my makeup routine. For real. And I also just like that it looks like this when I be doing the rest of my face. I'm like, ooh, I like it. Yeah, man. That's how I set my face. Pretty simple. Wipe that on away. I'll have to make a part 2 video on setting sprays, because we can get into the different types of setting sprays and things like that. Let me know down below if you're interested in that, on how to really like lock in your makeup. Setting powder is a big one. Somebody asked me, how often do I use setting powder? Every single time I do my makeup. I feel like the only time I would not use setting powder if I was trying to do like that clean girl makeup thing. But I keep telling y'all, clean girl makeup, your face is gonna be clean for real. Like, cause it's not gonna be there after 30 minutes. Yeah, it's all like, oh, it's no product. Oh, yeah, it's no product, all right. You know what I mean? It has no setting powder either. I feel like setting powder also kind of like makes makeup have that makeup-y finish. And that's why clean girl makeup like doesn't include setting powder. I do my makeup to stay on during the day, all right? And so yeah, I always use setting powder. I can't even really think of a time other than when I'm trying to be all cutesy and clean that I don't use setting powder. It's just so handy. In some looks you'll use less setting powder. So say for example you want to go for a dewy face, I'll put this picture up right here where I used to do the like a really dewy face and take a golden hour pictures. Even then I still use setting powder underneath my eye and on my forehead. I just didn't use as much on my cheeks. So say for example you want to use highlight on your cheeks, I would not put highlight on top of powder. I would just be mindful of how far I take it out, right? So I would take it out to probably this point and then add highlight here. That's it. If you want to go for a more dewy face, you just use less powder. You use like a little bit right here, but not on the rest of the face. Powder is, you know, how matte do you want it? You know what I mean? That's basically, if I didn't already have a title for this video, I would just name this, how matte do you want it? That is all I have to say about setting powder. That's all I have to say. I had to say a lot about setting powder. But thank you so much for sending over your questions on my Instagram. It really helps make these videos and really script them out, because some things I didn't think about, like the different colors of setting powder, I didn't even think to include that. So thank you all so much for helping me help you. If you want to see any of my other 101 videos, waterline 101, blush 101, eyeliner 101. If you want to see more about how I do my base, there is a how I do my base video, like the entire thing, foundation, tinted moisturizer, all of that. I have a how I do my base video. If you want to see more in-depth step-by-step videos where I just cover one little topic, check out my makeup foundationals playlist. I've done how I do my brows, how I apply lashes, how I do my new lip combo, so many things. Check it out. Also check me out on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. See, Instagram, you know, they usually help me keep this a democracy and figure out what we need to bring to the floor, what questions we need to bring to the Raggedy Royal Republic Senate floor. Also check me out on TikTok to see my summer bucket list. Well, now it's an all-year bucket list where I do a whole bunch of different things. I've jumped out of plane, I did a triathlon, I finished 75 hard. I go to a lot of different places and do a lot of activities, eat a lot of food. It's really fun. Check me out there. Also, we are less than 50 subscribers away from 40,000 subscribers. So at this point, I'm just thank y'all in advance for 40,000 subscribers. I can't wait to get to 50 million. Thank you so much. Also, if you have any other questions that I did not answer in this tutorial, or if you tried this out, check me out on my other socials or comment them down below. I'd love to see how this worked for you. And if you have any other questions, I'd love to answer them. I'll see you all in the next video. Make sure you give this video a like if you learned anything. Yeah. I'll see you on my next video. Bye.